Page 21, Marianne. On page 20, we got the chord progression from the 1 to the 5-7 chord. See, in the previous video, we did 1 to 4, 1, 4, 1. This is 1 to 5-7. So let's talk about the 5-7 chord. Remember, the 5-7 chord is built on the 5th step of the scale, and we're in C major, all the white keys. Let's go down here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it's built on the 5th step here. It's a 5 chord. If we want a 7th chord, we just add one more note. Remember, it's every other note. And the 7 comes from the interval between the top and bottom note of the chord. Here. Well, that interval right there, the top and bottom note, that's a 7th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's a 5 with the 7th added. It's a 5-7 chord in the key of C. And remember, when it's in this position, every other note, the bottom note identifies the chord. It's G. And yet you have to recognize there's a 7th added. Because this is just a 5 chord. That's a triad. This is not a triad. It's got 4. It's a tetrachord, actually. It's a 4. Now, we can turn this over. I'll put the G on top here. I can put the B on top here. I can put the D on top here. If I put the F on top, we're back to root position. You have 3 inversions here. So you got root, first inversion, second inversion, third inversion, root. You don't need to memorize these. Just know how it's constructed and what the inversions are. I mean, know what an inversion is as far as memorizing the notes. So this is third inversion. These, you can figure it out. Just you start out with root position, and I want to know third inversion. I'm just going to turn it over. There's 1, 2, 3. That's third inversion. You don't need to memorize that stuff. Just you'll get used to seeing it in the music eventually. In the 7th chords, we don't always use all the notes. Well, we don't even use all the notes in a triad all the time, but more often in a 7th chord. We can turn it into a triad simply by leaving out a note. Now we need the top and bottom note. That helps to define the chord. It defines the sound of the harmony. But we can leave out either of the 2 middle ones, or both actually. And you'll see it both ways in music. So what, generally speaking, is we will leave out the D, and we don't want to be moving our hands around a lot, so we use the inversion on it. So since I'm using C as my bottom note, I want to stay close to it, so I'm going to use the B as the bottom note for the 5-7 chord. I want the B on the bottom, so I'm going to put G on top. I'm not going to use this note, so now I have a triad. So I got the 1 chord and the 5-7 chord here. That way I can get it without moving around. The little finger had to go down 1. The hand stayed where it was. Do it with both hands. And that's generally how we use it. So it's the 1, the 5-7, and the 1. The 1, the 5-7, and the 1. And that's what we're doing in Marianne. That's what you see. That ugly chord in Marianne in the 3rd measure, the left hand, the whole notes, that is a B, an F, and a G. It's this inversion. We're not using the D. It's just first inversion of the 5-7 chord. So you learn to recognize it, and you'll know, okay, that's just a G7 chord or 5-7, okay. And you'll just play it. You don't have to stop and think about all those notes. Now there's always going to be chords where you're going to have to stop and think about the notes. There's some really weird chords coming around. A lot of chords, like all of these, are very common, and you'll get used to seeing them, and you'll just treat them as one thing. You see all those notes and you instantly recognize the pattern and how they're set up, and you just play it as one thing, one chord. A 1 chord, 5-7 chord, 1 chord. It makes reading music so much easier when you can treat it like one note instead of a bunch of notes. So let's look Marianne over now. 4/4 time, 4 counts in a measure. Quarter note gets a count. We're in the C position here. We're not, no eighth notes here, so just quarter notes and half notes and stuff. We can do that. Right hand first, just check and make sure we got the notes and rhythms. Starting out with third finger here. Here. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. And that's tied, so hold it down for 6 counts. Second line. 1, 2, 3. Now you're going to bring the thumb down here. Don't bring the hand down, just the thumb. See, they're not real clear to you, but what's happening here is you went in the right hand from a C chord to a 5/7 chord. Remember I said do this in both hands? Well, that's really what's happening in the second line. You've got these notes, and that's the 5/7 chord in the first 2 measures. Just playing them one note at a time. And then the back here. The same thing in the last line. Left hand, you just got the chords. The 1 chord, the 5/7 chord, and that's it. Okay, put the hands together just to make sure you got the rhythm and they're working. You're here. And this is kind of tricky here because first you want to get all 4 notes down at the same time. Just lowering both hands down. Relax. Don't tense up. Relax. Just lower the weight down into the keys. And then in the second measure, lift the left hand up. So that note is by itself. And then here. And then here. Never mind what it sounds like. Just go with it. Here. Second line. 1, 2. Lift the left hand up. You go through and put the hands together and get rid of the hesitations, and then we'll add in the articulation. In the right hand, you're slurring. It turns out each line is a phrase, a musical sentence. Did we talk about that yet? I can't remember what we talked about. It's musical thought. You put it together. And the second line is another musical thought. Is another musical thought. The idea is between the musical thoughts, you take a breath. You lift up with the hand. It's like taking a breath. So at the end of the first line I'm here, before I play the D in the second line here, I want a little silence. So I'm going to lift up. Just a little lift. It's not a big lift, it's a little lift. I make it a big lift so you can see it better, but it's really a little lift. And you feel it. Lift up. Just lift up between all of these phrases or musical sentences. And the left hand, you connect it as best you can. You can't. But you do it. You gotta rest. You gotta lift up for that. And then in the last measure, you have staccato notes. Again, hinge at the wrist here. It's a small motion. So don't get carried away with it. And there, as you put them together. The end of the lines, by the way, I'm lifting both hands together. It's just easier that way. Just lift them. You won't always lift both hands together, but in this song it works out okay. Dynamics apply to the melody. Mezzo forte, MF. Medium loud, moderately loud, sort of loud, you know. Whatever, it's not loud, it's just sort of, whatever you think that is. Because it's not a set value, it depends on the situation. Just what is it to you in this situation? The left hand needs to be soft. Because if I play it the same, these 3 notes drown out that 1 note. These got to be soft. I want to hear that note. Then the speed. Well, it says moderato, but this is really kind of a happy song. You can play it a little faster. It has to be accurate. About like that, I think. something like that. Maybe that's too fast. Take it slower. It's up to you, or your teacher will tell you. That's fine too. Let's play it together very slowly and double check all the notes and the rhythms. Make sure you're playing the same note I'm playing at the same time I'm playing. It's what we're after. I'll do the staccatos, but I'm going to play both hands more or less the same here. 1, 2, ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.